Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel, where we delve into the mind of a villain. In this entry, we'll be taking a look at the Characters of Sweeney Todd from Tim Burton's 2007 musical adaptation of the same name. A tragic tale of loss and revenge, the film is an instance where both protagonist and antagonist are evil. It shows a vicious cycle where evil begets more evil, and the destructive effects of vengeance made plain. We'll be venturing into spoilers and important plot points, so proceed with caution if you're new to the story. The film embodies the popular saying, if you seek revenge, you should first dig two graves, one for yourself. The plot follows the life of Benjamin Barker, a barber living in London with his beautiful wife Lucy and infant daughter. Unfortunately, the corrupt Judge Turpin covets Barker's wife and misuses his authority to falsely frame him for a crime he didn't commit. Barker is sent to a lifetime of hard labor overseas, leaving Judge Turpin to pursue his wife in his absence. One night, he violates her, causing her to poison herself with arsenic out of despair. 15 years later, Barker returns to London under the new name of Sweeney Todd, and vows to have his revenge against the evil judge. Sadly, his quest for vengeance brings him down a dark path that destroys him and any chance he has of moving on. Now, it's apparently obvious that the source of evil in the film is the judge. Barker was merely an innocent victim who fell victim to the covetous lust of a morally depraved hypocrite, a man who abused the power of the courts afforded to him for his own nefarious purposes, taking what is not his without any consideration of the damage done to others. In his recount of his past, Todd labels Judge Turpin as a pious vulture of the law, two apparently contradicting terms. The word pious brings with it the implications of uprightness and morality, but Turpin's piousness is but a sham, as his misuse of the law is predatory like a vulture. Because of his lust and his selfishness, he separated a family, sent an innocent man to suffer, forced himself on a woman which caused her to attempt suicide, and deprived a daughter of her parents. And when Barker's wife became mad from her poisoning, he simply abandoned her as damaged goods and left her to fend for herself on the streets. It's truly a testament to how despicable of a villain he is when we, as the audience, would be rooting for the murderous barber to have his revenge. When it comes to his lustful desires, Judge Turpin only knows to use brute force. This was the case with Barker's wife, and it's also the case with Joanna, Barker's daughter, who is now under his adoptive care. Throughout the years, he imprisoned her while waiting for her to reach the legal age before he could marry her. When she refuses him and attempts to escape, he coerces her by sending her to an asylum for her to think on her sins. In Judge Turpin's eyes, he objectifies women, seeing them only for their external attractiveness. In his song, Pretty Woman, that is the only adjective he uses to describe them. The word pretty is a complete focus on their external appearance, leaving no possible reference to their character or personality. Also in his song, women were only described doing simple and lowly activities like sipping coffee and flower picking, and being the reason for a man to sing. But this might be partially due to the era in which he is in, where women had less societal power and were expected to be more submissive. Judge Turpin is evil and he knows it. He does not excuse his actions or try to justify them. A brief but insightful moment in the film reveals this. After he sentences a young boy to hang for mere petty crimes, another example of his misuse of power, the beadle consoles him by telling him that even if the boy was innocent of the crime, he would likely have done something else to deserve a hanging. To that, the judge replies, "What man has not?" as if he were including himself in the statement. And indeed, his library of lewd drawings and his constant spying on his ward would be a constant reminder of his own depravity. He walks around with a perpetual furrowed brow, likely the result of the weight of his guilt and his loneliness. The closest thing he has to a friend is the beetle, but that is a far stretch, as he is aligned with the judge only for his status. In response to the judge's evil, Barker, now under the name Sweeney Todd, seeks to kill him. Todd is a man who is in perpetual pain from the suffering of being falsely imprisoned and having everyone he loves taken from him. Todd is without a doubt the most sympathetic character and the biggest victim of the story. He fails to kill the judge due to unforeseen circumstances, and with nowhere to pour out his rage, he goes on a killing spree to inflict the pain that he feels onto the world. Sweeney Todd is a monster born out of another. Evil has begotten more evil. Todd has become sickened with society due to the injustice that he himself has suffered, and from seeing the injustice that the lower class suffer at the hands of the rich and corrupt. Todd vows to correct this injustice, and in the lyrics of one of his songs he declares that those above will serve those down below. In his own words, there are only two kinds of people in the world. There's the one staying put in his proper place, and one with his foot in the other one's face. Later, Todd further describes the state of society as man devouring man, a rather poetic statement which becomes literal when you consider the filling that Mrs. Lovett uses for her pies. In modern vernacular, the equivalent of that phrase would be a dog-eat-dog world. But on top of that, in Todd's perspective, he believes that death is the solution for everyone, whether they are evil or innocent. For the wicked, death would be a just punishment, and for those being oppressed, death would be a relief, a putting out of their misery. Such a sentiment would have surely helped in bringing his razor to the throat of his victims with haste. Todd is lost in his own resentment, to the point that he cannot see that becoming a vengeful murderer makes him no better than the judge who caused him such torment. Todd's own perception of himself, his blackened soul, has isolated him. His only friends now are his silver razors, the reflection of which is a reminder of the monster he has become. His revenge has come at a high cost. It's worthwhile to note that despite knowing that his daughter Joanna is still alive, Todd does not show any interest or indication of wanting to personally reconcile with her. In fact, in the song he sings during his lethal shaves, he actually bids Joanna goodbye. Perhaps he is afraid to show himself to her in light of the horror he has become, and although he loves her, he fears that her resemblance to his wife is too painful for him to bear, reminding him of the peaceful life that was taken away from him. As a result, Todd prefers to remember his daughter as a child, being content to sadly reminisce over their old family pictures. At the end, Todd remains a victim of another person's selfishness yet again. There is one more evil character we've yet to mention. While in the past, Todd was separated from his wife due to Judge Turpin's lust, now he is again deprived of her due to the selfishness of Mrs. Lovett. While she did not lie about Lucy poisoning herself, she stopped at a half-truth, which effectively led Todd to believe the wrong conclusion. One can suggest that her omission of the truth was more hurtful to Todd than the injustice he faced at the hands of Judge Turpin. Perhaps Todd might not have degenerated to the person he is had he known that his wife was still alive. But ultimately, Todd's obsession with revenge becomes his undoing, as he unknowingly kills his own wife out of haste to meet the judge. When he realizes this, he has nothing else left to live for, and silently resigns himself to the fate of his own razor. Here is a man who was a victim, blinded by rage of his injustice, that he became a creature of carnage, unleashing his vengeance on all of society. He sought retribution through revenge, but ended up condemned by it. Overall, the characters of the musical are a reminder that revenge is not the answer, and that uncontrolled desires will destroy you, whether it was lust, as we see with Judge Turpin, or the vengeance we see with Sweeney Todd. So what do you think of the characters in the Tim Burton Sweeney Todd, folks? Let me know in the comments below, along with any suggestions for what to cover next.